Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. I know I did a hard start today. I'm a little distracted, but maybe I'll pop in a little bit of music since if some of you are missing it a little bit. How about we do a little bit of that? Anyway, hi there. This is RPG with DBJ with a little bit of a strange fit and misstep on my part, so I apologize for that. But for those who don't know, this is Future Friday. Yes, Future Friday, where we get to talk about all kinds of things, especially when it relates to tabletop RPGs and transhumanism. And maybe, just maybe, my little accidental shift in my fits to start was caused by what we're going to talk about today, which is an alien uprising. So, by the way, thank you very much for letting me stumble my way through my beginning of the show. So, for those who don't know, this show is simulcast over on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server. So you can participate in one or any of those platforms if you like. So, Alien Uprising. Now, hey, Cameron. Alien Uprising. Well, let me be very clear on this. As kind of below the lower third in the video, this doesn't necessarily need to be something alien in the classic sense of coming from another planet, but alien to your society, whether that is a substantial group of colonists that may have been separated from humanity, the main core humanity, for a very long time. It could be AI in a digital format. Maybe they are maybe there's some kind of mutation or virus or something that has affected a substantial part of the population that's been kept separate. It could be uplifts. For those who play Eclipse phase, where you have uplifted animals with not only human intelligence, but more of anthropomorphized bodies and are able to, in some way, shape, or form, intermingle with society. And yeah, yeah, and like Vince brings up the AI, the paperclip optimizer. Yes, possibly we'll talk about that. Now, one other caveat that we have to throw in here is when it comes to an alien uprising, is that there's some sort of parity between the main core of humanity and the aliens that want to change the way or are in the midst of changing the way we interact with them, right? So we're not talking alien invasion or alien domination or anything like that. We're not talking about an alien apocalypse. Yeah, Dead Man brings up the show Defiance. Yeah, off camera we were talking about, and it was my fault as well. We were talking about how many there's this concept where the main core focus of humanity is changed by this insertion of this other alien species. And I'm going to use alien as a generalization for anything, whether you want to use robots or androids or cyborgs or clones or what have you. And so Dead Man puts in like Defiance. I talked about a show that, of course, I can't remember the name of. I was calling it Battle Beyond the Stars, but that isn't it. There's also Earth Final Conflict. There's a very classic series that has come back on a number of times called V, as well as Alien Nation is another concept. And the cool thing, District 9. How could I forget District 9 in that one? So the idea that there's something out there where we've had contact with them, and now they are starting to either intermingle in society, or maybe they've been whatever is out there. When I say out there, whether it could be beyond a wall to in a floating habitat to outside of our galaxy even. Now things are changing for good or bad. And the best part of this is that it could be both good and bad, and we may not know. There's another television show called Colony that somewhat fits into this mode of an alien uprising. And so Listed below, of course, Alien Uprising, I put in like revolution or terrorism. And the idea behind this is that much like, say, a District 9 or the Colony or Earth Final Conflict, when this new societal change, species or whatever, comes in contact with us, the change is that maybe we don't know where we stand, or we don't know where the outsiders stand, and so therefore throws everything into conflict. If I'm president of the United Planets, am I still in control when this other alien armada shows up and they send out a message, we come in peace, and they start landing alien ships in on the cities and the planets in my district, but I have no ability to stop them, you know, and then they come out starting to shake hands with human beings. Am I still in control, or do I have to take a step back? And so um, our status in the world starts to change. Military and law enforcement might have to change. Hell, even language and language and fashion may even change. And things, the arts, and those kind of things, depending on how long the aliens are with us. And much like games that already have this aspect in them, like I'll go back to Eclipse Phase, right? Eclipse Phase has uplifts that player characters can play, and they live in particular regions. There are the factors and other alien species. Vince brings up XCOM 2. Yep. There are where somewhere in this thing, sure, there might be some kind of equilibrium, but the stories that I'm thinking of are when the equilibrium changes. Like, for example, in Eclipse Phase, there are the uplifts, and a lot of them live in um, they they're known as Mercurials, and they live around Venus. But what if thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, maybe even into the hundreds of thousands or millions, want to, they're tired of being separated, and they want to intermingle with the rest of the nations, or they want an outpost on Luna, or they plan on sending you know wave upon wave to Mars and become part of of a Martian resistance or something, and the player characters are involved in it. One of the best shows, albeit it did have some comedic elements to it, was Alien Nation. Alien Nation was really great about this because it was like a police procedural where the main character is a detective or what have you, is partnered with a newcomer, which is one of the aliens that had arrived on the planet. And much like District 9 involved in this as well, where the everyone knows that aliens are different than us, but there's parity. And so you have the situation where the detective is unfamiliar with the newcomers, um, like cultural behaviors and things, much like how the newcomers love to drink spoiled milk was a thing. What was something else? Oh, they had a pleasure center that was like in their armpits or something, as opposed to human beings. And of course, they were all bald, and the detective starts falling for one of the newcomers who were all, yeah, they were all bald, and they had a language that looked like a language that looked like the EKG reading on a heart monitor in a hospital. Like it was a line, and then it would go up and down and up and down, and that was like their language. And you would see that spray painted on walls or tattooed on their arm, or they would wear T-shirts and things. And I think that part of it is really cool. The that's the flavor part of it. But in the Uprising, um, player characters might be involved in investigating terrorist attacks. They may be involved in diplomatic elements, like protecting diplomats on either side of the conflict. Yeah, there it is. That's the best way I could describe it. Thank you very much, Tesla. Yeah, Alien Nation, ten Tenctonese, a font construction designed by by Trek Dom 30, and yeah, it's that's like a sine wave maybe, or what, I don't know. You have to visibly see it. I wish I could put it up here. Probably I could put it up here. But anyway, yeah, it's a strange, it's a strange, odd language that I think it's really cool how it's designed. Just to let you guys know that this episode will be cut a little bit short. We have some things going on here in real life, and so we have to deal with those as well. Now, one of the elements I think that you can really pull on in terms of like storytelling and changing up, basically, of course, this whole channel is about stealing an idea, is that the player characters, a really good trope is to throw the player characters into a situation where both the player characters and their leadership are dead set on a particular mission, right? That particular mission might be, that alien species or those androids or that alien signal or something is evil. Go destroy it. Or we found an alien who wants to incorporate us into the greater world, and like the factors or something, and your job is to protect them. Like, give them a mission, very simple, very straightforward, very vanilla, and then introduce information into it that starts to change things. Like, for example, there's been an explosion or a terrorist attack, and the maglev trains have derailed on Mars or something, and the player characters are there, and all evidence points that it's aliens themselves. And then maybe someone in the human community comes up and is like, gives them information like, no, this wasn't the aliens. It looks like it was, but it wasn't. You need to investigate it because your leadership is telling you something wrong. And then you get to set up this thing where the player characters may not be able to trust everyone, including the information coming from maybe their own leadership, and you have different agendas. Maybe there's an agenda that I don't know, keeping this Martian theme. Maybe the Martian leadership is like, we don't want those others here. It's going to disrupt our power base. We want them gone. Let's blame them. Or maybe there's there's some kind of third party involved in it, and the third party is like, hey, if we keep the conflict going and we don't care who wins, it just makes us the ones everyone has to go to, whether it's like arms dealers or something, or maybe there's something even more important. I believe in Earth Final Conflict, there was the aliens known as the Synod, or the Talons, and they had the Synod. It was a group of council of aliens that were, of course, very mysterious and didn't expose their plans. And of course, they come to Earth and they start giving out all these free gifts to Earth, curing hunger and disease and everything. And come to find out that, I believe towards the end of the series, and it ran for like 5 seasons, which surprised me, they were actually on Earth to defend against an even greater villain out there. And so they really didn't have time to be nice with humanity. They were just like, listen, we're here, we're taking over. And they were trying to make like an outpost of sorts to defend against a greater villain. And that might be the thing involved, right? Where the uprising might not even be something that the outsiders even want. Maybe there's a need for them to intermingle here. Like, for example, in the movie District 9, they never explain where the prawns came from, which, of course, derogatory term. They don't never explain why they got here. Was it a disease? Was it some kind of corruption of their technology? Were they enslaved? Much like in Alien Nation, they were actually enslaved. So when they got to Earth, they didn't have all this high technology to bring to Earth. They were just in parity with humanity and such. Yeah, Hellspawn Wolfer says, a setting in Mormon times, where the fantasy races are aliens from another dimension. Oh yeah. You could do a twist on like the Shadowrun kind of thing, where it's like a big circle where the alien races are really just our fantasy races come to an urban setting or even a sci-fi setting. I could see that. I could see something like that. And mind you, I think there's even a lot of fantasy where like elven races and things have come from like an outer world or traveled here through some kind of astral space or something, rather than just um, being born and growing as a parody, like a parallel evolution. Instead, they come from some other place. There now, the other part of having like an Alien Uprising 2 is if you want to throw a monkey wrench into your game, you want to throw something really different. Like, for example, instead of like technology with like cybernetics and plastics and nanotech, maybe there's like biotechnology that you've want to insert, for good or bad, into your setting. That's a possibility as well. Where, or even maybe utilizing some of those lesser used rules, maybe like, for example, going back to Eclipse phase, there is psionics and there are mental abilities, and usually they are related to one particular group or classification of character. But maybe this um, alien, this outsiders, also have the same capabilities, and they might be able to give it to maybe one or more of the player characters are able to find out that they can give it to someone else. Yep. Rickard says it's the future, and orcs have joined the police force. Yep. Yeah. For those who don't know, this week's subject was about orcs and their connotation with into fantasy role playing and blending them into like player character options and races and things, and we were talking about that. So I thought we would end it with Future Friday to talk about the same thing. But I was like, well, it works in space. Let's just talk, maybe make it more general and talk about aliens or something. Yeah, like Omen says, that said, biotech is kind of hard to differentiate from nanotech. Technically, biotech is nanotech, but I guess maybe I'm talking about it more in a flavor context, meaning like petri dishes and vats growing something that you use to attach to your arm or replace organs or something, rather than the powder nanotech that seems to construct things. I'm thinking of it more visually than technological, right? Yeah, that'll spawn wolfers, like undead alien races that use wizardry. It could be, if you want to go very, very high tech, or like it could be an alien race that uses something that we think is closer to magic. But again, uh, it might be something that's misunderstood by the main core society, but we don't know that. Along with it being misunderstood, maybe that's part of the reason for uncovering the mysteries involved. Especially if the beginning phase, it seems like the Alien Uprising seems to has the upper hand, but the player characters end up discovering that maybe there's a major weakness, like a certain type of frequency of sound, or they're very vulnerable to a particular type of a viral outbreak that the core part of humanity is completely immune to. You know, much like the stuff in our gut we're immune to, but that might be very vulnerable to like an alien species or something. Could be like a radiation wave, or heck, even an alien species that's trying to escape the like the explosion of a star or something like that, pulsar or something, and they're trying to essentially, like in Dungeons and Dragons with the orc hordes going into the human lands, maybe they're just trying to escape their harsh worlds, and they're coming here, and they just have a very hard time of explaining it. You know, um, something else may be happening, like in since we're talking about transhumanism, um, AI might be forcibly taking over humanity in terms of like implanting themselves into people's brains um, in like a forced synergistic relationship. And while the people that end up getting this like forced implant may say, oh, afterwards it's perfectly fine, the rest of humanity might be thinking, no, we don't think so, right? Maybe this isn't the maybe doing it by force isn't the thing we need to do, and we need to put a stop to it simply because it's something we're not used to. So also, like I brought up with the television show, of course, that I can't remember, there was a battle going on between the humanity and the aliens, and that's how the show started. They never explained it, and at the very end, you come to find out that it was, you know, of course, the main characters, protagonists, are like, oh, of course, we're the good guys and the aliens are the bad guys. But you come to find out that it was humanity that started it when they started sending out colony ships, landing on these planets that had seedlings. They were basically like um, birthing planets for the aliens, and the humans that live there were ordered to destroy all the little alien babies and stuff, because they were like, this is going to destroy, it's going to ruin our plans for expansion. And that started the whole war, because basically humans killed the alien babies and stuff. Yeah, yeah, he Fox says elves save us from aliens, which, how do you know that the elves themselves wouldn't be aliens? Or the it's the alien species that saves us from the other alien species, which even throws even more complications into it. Like I said, guys, we're going to have, this is going to be a shorter episode, just because, you know, IRL things are happening. So we will probably be cutting this off in at about the half hour mark. But I just thought I wanted to toss out a ton of yeah, just wanted to toss out a ton of story ideas and things out to you guys, especially if you want to really get into like transhumanist type of gaming, like Altered Carbon, Eclipse Phase, even the Expanse even works with this. Another way of doing like in Alien Uprising might be stealing something from the movie Avatar. Uh, Ignoring, this is what I find a little bit weird. This is just a side note. Ignoring the giant blue aliens from Avatar, the movie actually is about the project Avatar, which is to send scientists and language specialists and such to an alien world, and growing biological bodies and inserting your consciousness into those alien bodies to create a dialogue with another alien species. So if, and this is just my particular opinion, I don't know, but apparently they're filming other Avatar movies. They could absolutely go to any other alien world, because the movie is about the project, not about the blue aliens, right? So the PCs might be members of a core group that have to, because the uprising might be happening, and the players now have to insert themselves into the other group, wherever that other group is. Yeah, Omen says they could make an avatar of xenomorphs and predators. More predators and xenomorphs, but yeah, absolutely. Player characters like, I want to play a predator. Sure. And they insert themselves into a predator before they get here or something. Yeah, why not? And even, heck, even the Predator movies, as except for the first one, as bad as the rest of them have become, is a type of like alien uprising where, sure, a single predator or a bunch of them are collectively better than a single human being. It's not really an invasion. It's more of a, I suppose you could call it like a social clash of sorts. Um, yeah. Deadman says in eclipse phase, the planet Solemn is covered with a sporing species of plant where the spores will digest anything that isn't naturally occurring. And again, it might just be something. It, this is a. I'm I'm going to make this very simple. It could just be a misunderstanding, right? Like, if an alien species is a plant, and they expel spores that eat other things, other biological materials, and somehow those spores get to Earth, it, maybe the alien species just doesn't understand what humans are even. They might look at the trees and plants and grass and go, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" and ignore the humanity, or maybe this is just their way of spreading or maybe basically digesting things, right? So it could just be a simple misunderstanding if you just want to do a one-off, like a one shot or a 1 to 3 shot game where it's aliens trying to invade us, and the aliens are like, "Oh, I didn't realize that this was harmful to your atmosphere, or your in looking upon us turns you insane. We didn't realize that. Sorry about that." And then something comes about it in that way. Hellspawn Wolfers just throwing stuff at the wall, like a draconic or dragon like alien races that has magitech. Yeah. Now, the other part of like an alien uprising is the fact that especially if you're talking about transhumanism, we might be changing ourselves so much that the aliens we meet might literally just be the aliens them on their side, having gone through a number of transitions. So for example, again back to eclipse phase, looking at a party of characters in eclipse phase, you would not relate any of those people to modern day humans, especially when you have like uplifted orangutans and swarm synthmorphs and nova crabs and humans that have no genetic relationship to each other. When you have fury morphs and exalted morphs and Olympian morphs and all this other kind of stuff. And if aliens were to see us in those forms, would they consider them to be collectively human, or would they consider them to be each a divergent race of other things? So maybe this alien uprising is just their method on their side of the galaxy or what have you, as transforming themselves to with technology into a better form, which I think sometimes we tend to, as sci-fi enthusiasts, we tend to ignore that fact, right? We're like, oh, if aliens are going to come to Earth, it's just a big spaceship and aliens, rather than how we would think we would leave our own solar system. Like, why wouldn't aliens send drones or artificial intelligence before they got here, or clone tanks of themselves with material that they could grow more bodies in, and or attach themselves as a hive mind, and maybe all of the above. Maybe even uplifting the alien animals on their own planet to send them out as first contact agents before we meet the true aliens that are out there. Now, if we turn inwardly, as I said, alien doesn't necessarily need to be something from another planet. It could be something here. For example, uplifted animals could be very alien to us and us to them, especially if they're pissed off at how we've treated them in the past, right? Like, all the entire spectrum of like monkeys and bonobos and orangutans and chimpanzees that now have human intelligence. I'm looking at you, all of the um, Planet of the Apes movies that have ever been made. That was a thing where they looked at humanity like, oh, well, you guys are the base species. Look what you did to your own planet. We're the ones that need to take over. And there might be some contention with that, especially if you start seeing like relationships between romantic or otherwise between uplifted animals and standard humanity and such. Um, yeah, Mike Gould says, consider a maximum overdrive take on a race of self-aware constructs like robots, androids, etc., seeking to make other constructs self-aware. Right. And the uprising again might not. I'm not talking about an invasion, but like you said, what if AI or constructs or something are like, oh, well, we get to breed too, and they start making these massive factories reproducing themselves? Humanity might have a problem with that, right? Like, no, they're not carrying weapons, but we don't mind you existing, but like punching out factories where they're making hundreds of you or thousands of you a day, we have a problem with you guys doing that. And of course, the constructs are like, why? You do it all the time, right? Matter of fact, we have the statistics on your birth rates. We're just trying to we're producing just as many androids as your birth rate ebbs and flows, and then of course some people would take that as a threat. Well, what are you saying? Are you saying we're not treating you right? Are you trying to create an army? You know, we need to have spies in their midst and blah blah blah. Sometimes, much like in our own world, you know, we the we defend ourselves because we see the threat of something else that is equal to us. Because if something's equal to you, that means it's got a 50-50 chance of either taking you out or you surviving. Those aren't very good odds, right? You always want to be superior to anything that's out there that is a predator to you. Even if that isn't a predator yet, you're always thinking, hey, this might be a predator in the future. Um, yeah, Mike Gould says, yeah, we see them as creators of war. They see themselves as liberators. Of course, heck, how hard would it? Our fear today is that AI might eliminate us because they could read out the entire history of humanity and go, "You guys are pretty nasty to each other." Wipe out. Yep. Yeah. Michael says Detroit's Become Human did this well. Um, the Was the show called Become Human? I think it lasted a season. Yeah, where and who knows? Here's the thing: on our side of the liberation, we look at it like, oh, it was a game, Detroit Become Human, the video game. I'm sorry, because there was a show called Become Human, but you're saying like the video game in Detroit Become Human did this really well. I haven't seen the game, but I'm imagining that our first interaction with it is like, hell no. And the people that are on the other side of it is like, no, they actually make a point. This might be good for us. Dead Man says, or you could do like Eclipse Phase did with the planet Tanaka. It's down to the final two salient planets warring over who gets to control the next generation of plants to fight for control of the planet. Yep. Uh, yeah. And again, um, this uprising might not even be between us. Like, could you imagine a different factions of AI and constructs having war with each other, and we as humanity don't understand what that conflict is? We're just in we are just part of it. Yeah, Dead Man puts in the link to Detroit Become Human, 2018 adventure game developed by Quantic Dream. Plot follows three androids who escapes the owner she was serving to explore her newfound sentience and protect a young girl. As a matter of fact, I would consider a great uprising would be the Human, the British show about androids that look human that have become things you can buy and purchase and become part of society, kind of, and are treated like dirt. There are even parties where people get together to destroy androids because they're taking all the human jobs away. And the fits and starts of that show, where like the one android lady, she's living with the family, and the mom, dad, and the two kids that are in the household each have a different opinion of the android and how they fit into society. The mom jealous of the android because it's taken over her position as the mom. The daughter that can't stand the android because she's trying to take over the mom's position. The young son who's like has a crush on the android, and the dad who who hacks the android to have a little bit of an intimate relationship with the android, but come to find out it's being recorded and goes back to corporate headquarters what you've done with it and stuff. It's all those kind of little things I think that are great, that become really great story seeds, using little bits of information here and there to like throw into the game to change the way it's done. Yeah, Mike Gould says, despite the wonky plot, Alien 4 mentioned an android rebellion. You know what? There's a bigger world in the Alien franchise that I'm surprised no one's ever developed a bigger part of, because I like the world of Alien. Uh, if you took the aliens out, I mean, right, there's something going on in the background. Heck, in Alien 2, in Aliens, they talk about, is this another bug hunt? And I'm like, well, what kind of bug hunt were you going on before that this became a normal thing you would talk about, right? But they never mentioned it again. Yeah. Deadman says, continuing Detroit Become Human description, Connor's job is to hunt down sentient robots. There's Kara, who escapes the owner, Connor, whose job is to hunt down the sentient robots, and Marcus, who devotes himself to releasing other androids from servitude. And yep, Blade Runner is supposed to be in the same universe? Seriously? No. Seriously? In the same universe as the Alien? It's different. But yeah, maybe there's a faction going around trying to release. Wow, I never knew that. I learned something every day on the show. I love that. And that's weird too. Pretty dark world as well. If there are a coalition of say AI or androids releasing other AI from servitude, would the player characters join them? Are they correct in what they're doing? Maybe it's illegal, but they have a point. Maybe they're humans that join the faction of AI that are like, no, they should have the right to leave and create. They start protesting and sabotaging and doing other kinds of things. Right? Rickard says you have the Swedish show Real Humans, the title translated, as well, about the conflict between humans and robots as the robots become more normal everywhere in society. Right. And what my mind is going to is basically throwing a monkey wrench into how we normally treat them or interact with them. Like maybe there are robots that walk around and everyone's just like, oh, everything's hunky-dory until something changes. Yep. And like Mike Gould notes in Blade Runner, yeah, note the android rebellion. That's cool. It makes sense that you mention it, but I just never put those together. I never did. And bringing up Blade Runner, right? In Blade Runner, you had the androids had a lifespan that was programmed into them. And why would humanity do that? Maybe they have a point in not wanting to die after a 5-year servitude or something, and maybe their rebellion becomes far more violent, but they have a point, right? And so the rebellion might become terroristic. There's Humans, the TV show. Maybe it becomes far more of a terrorist act, but the player characters are trying to like solve the situation. Like, okay, you can't be violent, but we understand your point, and they might get caught in the middle. Or maybe a bunch of the player characters are actually part of that group, unknowingly, told, hey, if you're not with us, you're against us or something. And like Omen says, what if they actually have a soul or something? And how do you measure that? How deep do your feelings have to be as a machine till people consider you to be alive? So those are the stories I think would be really cool to tell. And especially even if it's even if this is something that becomes retrograde, meaning a faction, let's say you're playing Altered Carbon or Eclipse Phase, and androids and AI is just part of society, and they're just like, oh no, they're the regular people like everyone else. You could regress and have factions going like, no, they're not human at all. We need to get rid of them, and here's why. And then they start, spouting out all kinds of reasons why these beings shouldn't exist and such. Mike Gould says Star Trek: The Next Generation Measure of a Man also covered this. Essentially, what is life? Is data alive? Is data a real thing? And then I think Reichert was on the other side of that court case where he had to prove that data wasn't alive, which hurt his own feelings because he's like, I don't want to do this to my friend. But he was also there to, it was, the prosecuting and defense attorneys basically proving whether they are alive or not. And again, there might be some people that might be quite upset about the fact that an artificial species of beings are that way, especially if you have humanity being forced to change the way they think about things, right? Pretty bad to think about the robot that you hired to do all your housework and stuff to now be free, and now that robotic house worker now knows all your family secrets and stuff and the way you treated them, and they're like, ooh, maybe we don't, or AI judging humanity on its own terms and going, yeah, we have a record of all the things you've done, and there hasn't been one single generation of humanity that hasn't been violent to each other. So what are we supposed to think? What's another movie that wasn't very good but dealt with? Chappie. Chappie was one. Great visuals, plot, but it dealt with that as well, with the robot hooking up with the street gang and learning a little bit of humanity and what friendship means and that kind of thing. With with the corporation wanting to snatch back the humanity chip that was inside of Chappie, that might be a thing as well. Like, the AR really are alive. We got to stop this before it gets out. Or the AI are like, yeah, we are alive, and we're going to stop you from stopping us, or something, and so on and so forth. Building that layer of everything. But like I said, guys, I did start the show with a little bit of a fit and start. Maybe AI was affecting me. Maybe there's a bit of a psychological uprising on my end. But I do have to get out of here. We have some in real life things going on this end of the show. I will say thank you very much for joining me. For those who like the show, truncated or not, please like, share, subscribe, follow, just take part. There's a huge archive, 800 plus hours of content in the past. Just spread the word. This is RPG with DBJ. Spread the channel. I really appreciate you guys just being here. Have a great one. We'll think of something. I'll surprise you guys with something fun for next week. So guys, everyone have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye. Thank you for watching.